Hey folks, I'm Papa Boris, and in this video I'm going to show you how to play Mini Rogue. In case you're not familiar, this is a solo board game roguelike that you can play on Board Game Arena, and this game actually does not have the premium tag, which means you can play this with a free account. So it's a totally free game. Highly recommend it. Love this game. Let's go ahead and start. Oh, let me actually show you one thing though. Make sure you have combat stance turned on. It's a variant, but I do believe it's a core part of the game, so you should just learn it when you learn the game, in my humble opinion. Okay, let's go ahead and start. For the rules video that I'm doing here, I'm gonna pick the mage for reasons that will become clear in a moment. But the very first thing you do at the beginning of a run is you pick one of 4 characters. This is a roguelike, so you go as far as you can, and then if you don't kill the final boss, you die. Or if you die at some point before you kill the final boss, you lose and start over. There's no meta progression whatsoever. It's just 4 different characters to play the game with, and you're off to the races. So let's grab the mage. And something is going to happen here. Okay, so let me actually turn off auto starting stuff. Yeah, there we go. We'll do this. So here's the core structure of the game. You can see here a map of the dungeon. Your goal is to traverse through 10 floors and kill the big bad boss at the end. Og's remains! And then story something, and then you win if you kill him. The floors are divided into 4 areas. And for some reason in the game, the terminology is switched. Each of these sections is called an area, and then the whole section is called a floor, but I feel like it's just backwards, so I'm going to switch it when I explain it. I think that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, these are the floors, and then what the game calls floors are actually areas. An area consists of multiple floors, in my opinion, because every time you get to this card right here, you descend, so it would seem like you are going down to the next floor. Anyways, if you're on the first or second floor, you're in Area 1, the sewer. If you're on floor 3 or 4, you're in the second area, the dungeon. Floors 5, 6, 7 are in the catacombs. And then at the very end, floors 8, 9, and 10 are in the sunken keep. And that's going to be important when we take a look at monsters and mini-bosses. But right now, we're on floor 1. We're trying to get down to floor 10. How does that work? Well, at the beginning of a floor, you arrange 8 cards in this grid. The bottom right card is always going to be this descending card, or if it's floor 2, 4, 7, or 10, it will be a boss or mini-boss. This will actually seem very familiar to you if you've played any number of video game down and right roguelikes, where you always begin in the upper left corner, and then after resolving that card, you can choose to move either to the right or to move down. You can never move diagonally up or left in this game, and then eventually you get down to this card, you descend to the next floor, and you keep on in your quest to reach the final boss. So, how do the various cards work? Well, in this video, I'm going to try to explain as many of them as I can encounter up until we finish the second mini-boss. There might be a card or 2 that I don't find in this particular run, but I'll do the best I can to explain as many as I can see. And I will also be doing a playthrough series, so if you're interested in that, check out the link in the description to my playlist for this game. Okay, so in no particular order, because I can't control everything, we have a tomb. So the way that tombs work is that when you encounter it, which will happen when I click the Encounter Tomb button, you will roll a black die and a white die. I'll show that right now. Okay, so I rolled 5 on the black die and a miss on the white die. What does this mean? Well, in this game, the black die is the dungeon die. And, okay, it looks like it disappeared from here. That's fine. We can see the log of it right there. 5 black, miss white. The black die is the dungeon die. It's a typical die numbered 1 through 6. And it's used to determine dungeon effects. In the case of a tomb, does this game let you... Oh, it does not... It does not pull up cards for bigger viewing. Let me see if I can... I'm going to zoom in so it's easier to read stuff. So in the case of a tomb, the black die that you roll determines the effect. So I rolled a 5, which means rat swarm, and you lose a food, which is bad. I start the game with 4 food as a mage, and I lost 1 because I rolled a 5. You could also have gotten a holy potion, which we'll talk about later, a gold coin. You could have gained a food, gained an experience. The cross sword symbols is an experience in this game. Or if you roll a 6, you actually fight a ghost, which is not the worst thing, but that symbol right there means you get into combat with a ghost. Now, this symbol up here, you should always check in the upper right of cards for like what's happening up here, because this symbol means that you're doing a skill check. So what's a skill check? Well, when you roll the white die, which is a character die, if you get a 5 or a 6, that passes the skill check. That's a skill check success. If you roll a miss, 2, 3, or a 4, then you fail the skill check. In the case of a tomb, passing the skill check allows you to adjust the dungeon die roll up or down by 1. So, when the dungeon die rolled a 5, if I had rolled a 5 or a 6 on my character die, I could have adjusted this 5 down to a 4 and gained an experience, which would obviously be better than losing a food, or I could have adjusted it up to a 6 if I was feeling frisky and fought a ghost. So that's how tombs work. Now, next, what I'm going to do is use the Mage's Foresight ability. So let's take a break here before we talk about more cards and discuss characters. So the way each character works is that your starting character determines your starting values of armor, which is how it works. It reduces damage from monster attacks in combat. Starting health. Every character's max HP is 20. And if you get down to 0, you die and the game is over. Your character determines how many coins you start with. Coins are used when you find merchants, hunters to purchase stuff, and you can also use them in a particular room called a shrine, which we'll talk about later if we see it. And then food. You can have a maximum of 4 food, and the way that food works is that whenever you get to this card and descend, you lose a food. But if you need to pay a food and don't have any food, you lose 3 HP. So it's an important resource to have because every food you have now is kind of like 3 HP later. Now the characters also have character abilities. They have an ability that they can use in combat. For the mage, that's conjuration, which we'll talk about later. And they also have an ability that can be used in exploration. What that means is that after you finish resolving a card, but before you move to the next card, you can use the exploration ability. Once you use a character's ability, doesn't matter which one, whether it's the combat one or the exploration one, but once you use the ability, you flip the character card face down. In the case of Board Game Arena, it took me forever to realize this, like your character will go gray, and then you cannot use character abilities anymore until you encounter a card that has this shield with a skull on it symbol. This means recharge your character ability. So for the most part, it basically means that you can use 1 character ability per floor, because every time you descend, you will get it back. But there are some other cards that can actually give you this back and potentially let you use more than 1 character ability within the same floor. Now I'm going to use the Mage's Foresight ability. What this does is it allows me to reveal up to 3 cards. This symbol right here, by the way, means a dungeon card. And so that's why I picked the Mage for the purpose of this rules video. It will hopefully let me see all the cards on a floor and maximize the odds that I will be able to reveal or explain as many cards as possible in this video. Now, I am going to be going down to this armory. You'll notice that after I resolve this card, not before, but after, I got to see the 2 cards adjacent to it. So most of the time, you are able to see where you're going before you make the commitment. I think I'm going to be going to this trap, but that means then that I will reveal this card down here. I am also going to reveal this card here in case after going to the trap I want to go to the right. And then I'm also going to look at this card because after the trap we're going to be seeing the other 2. So let's reveal these. Yeah, let's talk about more rules. So the way that traps work is that when you get to a trap, you roll the dungeon die, and the dungeon die determines what bad thing happens on the trap. So in the case of this trap, 1 or 2, nothing happens. If it rolls a 3 or 4, you lose an experience. I have no experience currently. If you have to lose an experience and have none, you lose HP instead. And if you go to 5 or a 6, you lose 2 experience. But if you succeed, if you roll a success on your character die, which is again a 5 or a 6, you get 2, 3, or 4 coins. So what I'm going to do is go to the trap, and I'm actually going to use the Mage's starting item. The Mage begins with a potion. There are 6 different potions in the game. Most of them are pretty straightforward. I'm going to use the Perception Potion to automatically succeed at this skill check to gain some gold. How much gold, I won't know until I roll the dungeon die. I rolled a 1, so I get 2 gold, because 1 and 2 means the first row here. Okay, so now let's talk about the damp cave. The damp cave, kind of similar to a tomb. You have this symbol up here, meaning that you get to adjust the dungeon die by 1 if your character die is a skill success, meaning that you roll a 5 or a 6. And the dungeon die determines which of these things happens to you. So you can get a food, you can lose a food, you can get 2 experience, you can fight a ghost. That's this symbol right here, that means you fight. And then this is real bad right here. This means you get poisoned. So the way that that works is that every time you roll the dice, you also roll this poison die, which actually doesn't say, but according to the internet, half of the sides have the poison symbol, and every time the poison symbol comes up, so 50% chance every time you roll the dice, you lose an HP until you find a way to heal yourself from the poison. So it's really, really bad. So if that happens to you, you do not want to get poisoned. I'm going to go over to the hunter because this is one of the merchants. The hunter allows you to spend gold to buy things. And the way it works is that you can pay 2 gold for this symbol right here. This symbol means get rid of all the bad stuff affecting you. That's poison, curse, or blindness. You can pay 3 gold to gain 4 HP, 5 gold to buy a potion, or you can pay an amount of gold depending on what floor you're on to purchase food. So in the first floor, it's really good. It's just 1 food, 1 coin. But as the game goes along, it can cost 2, 3, and eventually 4 coins to buy a food. So I beg your pardon. I guess I shouldn't say it's the floor that you're on. It's the, well, it's what the game calls a floor. It's what I call an area. So right now in the first 2 zones, the food only costs 1 coin. But then it'll cost 2, then 3, and then 4 by the end of the game. Now what I'm going to do here is pay all 5 of my coins to buy a potion. So let's talk a little bit about potions. Potions are used either in or out of combat. Fire potion, very simple. It deals, and I think if I hover over this, you can actually see the description. There we go. Fire potion deals 7 damage to a monster. Frost potion stops the monster from attacking for 1 turn. Poison deals 4 damage to the monster, and it will deal 4 damage to the monster every subsequent attack that you do. So every round of combat, it'll do 4 damage. So if you're in combat for, more than 1 round, it's better than a fire potion. Healing potion, very simple. You just get 6 HP. Holy is the same as this thing right here. It cures you of all of your bad statuses. That's blindness, poison, and curse. And perception potion is actually what the mage starts with. It lets you either automatically succeed at a skill check, or if you become blind, you can cure that. Blindness means that after you encounter a card, you don't get to see what the adjacent cards are. So you're just wandering through the dungeon blind. It's bad. So you definitely want to cure that if you can, and perception potions let you do that. Notice that holy potions do as well. It's just that perception potions can, or if you don't need to cure blindness, they let you automatically succeed at a skill check. And then you can see the rules at the bottom of this window. You can never carry 2 of the same potion, and you can only ever carry 2 potions at a time. Now, the game is nice. If you pick up a 3rd potion, you are able to use one of the potions that you're carrying, which traditionally just means you can either drink a healing potion to get 6 HP, or drink a holy potion to cure something, or drink the perception potion to cure blindness. 99 times out of 10, picking up a 3rd potion only doesn't screw you over if one of your 3 potions is a healing potion and you just pop it for 6 HP before you have to discard a potion because you can only carry 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a fire potion so that I can use that to kill a monster if I encounter a monster. Now, at the hunter and at the merchant, you can sell armor for 4 coins or a potion for 2 coins, but I will not be selling the potion that I just bought for 5 coins for 2 coins, so we're done here. We've talked about traps, tombs, damp caves. Let's talk about treasure. So the way that treasure works is that you roll a dungeon die to determine what you're going to get for treasure. You can get a coin, 2 coins, 5 HP, a fire, frost, or poison potion. You can get a fight with a ghost plus 2 coins, or a fight with a ghost plus an armor. However, you only get this if you succeed at a skill check. So in this case, I rolled a miss, which means I do not get to fight a ghost and gain 2 coins. However, in the top of this treasure card, you can see that there is this 1 coin / 2 of these symbol thingies. And to be perfectly honest, I don't understand it. If somebody wants to explain it to me, please do. You can see that I got 3 coins. Usually you just get 1 coin. In this case, I got 3. I'm not entirely sure why I qualify for this because I haven't actually fought anything on the floor, so I should read the rules on that at some point. But if anyone wants to explain in the comments, please do. Now, the other things that we didn't talk about here, there was another trap, and then there's the armory. So the armory is a skill check. You pick up this armory card, that's what the symbol means. You pick it up and carry it around with you if you pass the skill check, otherwise nothing happens. So what do you get for carrying around the armory? Well, depending on if the dungeon die rolls a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, the armory will give you either 1 reroll, or 2 rerolls, or 3 rerolls to use in combat against monsters. These are called feats. A feat lets you reroll one of your character dice when you're fighting a monster. And normally, to pay for a feat, you either have to give up an experience or give up 2 HP. But the armory gives you 1, 2, or 3 free rerolls that don't cost anything. Now, monsters, we're going to get into combat with a monster later on, but for now I just want to explain how this card works. So, because it's really confusing when you look at it, but it's not that confusing once you understand it. Basically, the monster card does not tell you what monster you're fighting. It's the monster card plus what area of the dungeon you're in. So right now, we're in the bottom area, the sewers, area 1. So that would mean that any monster card that we encounter, we would be fighting the first row. That's what this symbol here is like, what area are you in? So we'd be fighting a mutant fly. Now this right here, notice the 1 and 2 player symbols, that tells you how much HP the monster has. If you're playing this game cooperatively, which is possible, but I don't actually recommend it. I think this is just a solo game, and the cooperative thing is kind of tacked on. But anyway, if you are playing the game cooperatively, then you use the second column. Basically, in this game, monster HP is doubled if you're playing with a friend. But if you're playing solo, you ignore this column. So this tells you that the monster has 4, 6, 8, or 10 HP, depending on which area of the floor you're fighting in. Since we are in the first area, this would be the mutant fly, and it would have 4 HP. The damage column tells you how much damage the monster does every round of combat and whether it has any special effects. This means it ignores armor. This is really bad. This means that it makes you fall down to the next floor. So really don't get hit by those. It's super bad. This tells you that it's ignoring armor again. And then that means that every time you get hit, if you take damage from the monster, you lose 1 experience. And in the reward column is what you get for killing the monster. Again, we got gold, experience, food, or more gold. So if I had encountered this card, it would have been a 4 hit point monster that hits for 2 damage, pierces armor, doesn't matter because I don't have any, and it would have given me 2 coins for killing it. We'll talk more about how combat actually works when we get into combat, which we'll be doing with the boss. Okay, so we descend, which means we eat a food, we get our character ability back, and we are now in the next floor. At the end of this floor, we're going to be fighting a mini boss. These are random. We got the King's Protector, and these work like monsters where 1, 2, 3, area 1, 2, or 3 determines if it has 12, 16, or 20 HP in this case. It also determines how much damage it deals. This one always breaks armor, but it just deals more damage if you encounter it later. And then the reward is, for this one, 2 experience and 1 coin. Now, we got the Hunter again, so let's encounter him. In this case, I think what I'm going to do, since I randomly got 3 coins from a treasure, is just load up on food. So I could buy healing, but the healing always costs the same. Food will get more expensive as we go. This is a good opportunity for me to just load up on food with the rest of my coins. Now we're going to finish, which lets us see these cards. And then again, I am going to use the foresight to reveal more cards. Since I'll be going this way, it means I reveal those 3 cards. And then we'll talk about anything that we haven't talked about yet. Lots of traps on this one, lots of traps. So we've already talked about traps. We've talked about the damp cave. I don't want to go to a trap. When you're a level 1 character, we'll talk more about leveling up in a moment, you only have a 1 in 3 chance of making the skill check. So most of the time, you're going to have bad stuff happening to you. So I don't want to go there now that I've used up my perception potion. We'll go to this cave. So remember, the dungeon die tells us what's going to happen. So 5 means I get 2 experience. I failed the skill check because I did not roll a 5 or a 6. But that's fine, because even if I had succeeded, I would have rather gained 2 experience than lost a food or gotten poisoned. Okay, so we've talked about treasure. Let's talk about the Hermit. So the Hermit card is just good. What it does is it gives you back your character ability, which is actually really cool, because basically, the mage's character ability in combat's really strong, but I used foresight since I was teaching the rules, which means I'm not going to get to use it, except I am now because I found this hermit, which is sick. And the hermit just gives you a choice of 3 things. You can either pay 1 experience and gain 3 coins. This is really bad early on because early on it's really hard to get experience, and experience is super valuable. But later on in the game, when you have extra experience, it's actually just 3 free coins. You can give the hermit 1 food and gain 3 health, or you can swap 2 cards in the dungeon. So I could, like, for example, swap this empty shelter with the hunter and then encounter the hunter again. The hermit cannot move himself, and the hermit can also not move the mini-boss or the descendant card. So that one is locked in place. Here what we're going to do is give it 1 food and gain 3 health. So I paid 1 gold to the hunter to buy a food, and then I got 3 health out of it. So it's like I paid 1 gold to get 3 health, which is pretty great. And hopefully I'll find more food before I run out, though that's not going to happen because I'm not going to actually finish this run. All right. So now we got our character ability back. You'll notice I have the option to do this, even though I wouldn't do anything because everything is revealed. And then we're going to go to empty shelter. Now, this is a really good room. So what the empty shelter does is, again, you roll a dungeon die, and depending on what you roll, you get something. The last 2 things are bad. It's losing 3 health or fighting a ghost. But all the other... Oh, and I guess the mage's trap. Okay, that's also bad. You lose an experience. But half of the time, 1, 2, or 4, you get a pretty great outcome. You get a potion. Either a fire potion, poison potion, or 2 experience. Or if you roll a 4, a holy potion or a healing potion, your choice. In addition, no matter what happens, you always get up to 10 HP. So if you're like at 1 HP and you get here, you go up to 10. So that is incredible. Definitely don't forget about that because that's a really important feature of that card. So let's see what we get here. This could be a big deal. We got a 1. Amazing. Now we got a 6, so we passed the skill check, but it doesn't matter because 1 and 2 are the same, and I wouldn't have wanted a 3 anyway. So what we're going to do here is actually grab 2 experience. Normally, we might consider taking a poison potion. Remember, you can't have 2 of the same potion, so I can't get a fire. But I'm a mage. I can make potions for my character ability. So we're going to get 2 experience because that will allow us to level up after killing the boss. So let's go ahead and fight the mini-boss. Now, here will be an explanation of how combat works. Combat against the mini-bosses works the same as combat against regular monsters. So the fact that we didn't encounter any regular monsters on the way here is not a big deal. Let's talk about combat. Okay, you can see a whole lot of stuff going on here. So up at the top, if you're playing on Board Game Arena, you can see the HP of the monster, what their damage effects are. This one deals 2 damage and ignores armor. You get to see the rewards. So the way it works for mini-bosses is you get 2 experience and a gold, and then rewards. So this is always the same thing. After you kill a mini-boss, you roll a dungeon die, and then you get a reward from this table. So all of these are good. It's a potion, or if you don't want or need the potion, 2 experience, 2 coins, or 1 armor, depending on what you roll. You don't get to roll a character die for this. It doesn't have the skill check icon, so you can't modify it. But on the other hand, no matter what comes up on the dungeon die, it's good. It's 2 coins plus another pretty good thing, and it's your choice. Normal combat against monsters does not have this reward card. So if you're fighting a regular old monster, you're just getting what the monster gives, but for a mini-boss, you also get this reward card. Okay, let's talk about how combat works. So at the beginning of combat, you can change to a combat stance. So before we can explain the combat stances, we need to understand how the basic stance, the balanced stance, work. Basically, if you're playing without the combat variant, then you're always in balanced stance. So what is that? Well, you're going to roll your character die and do that much damage. Now, the way that the character die works, the white die, is it's a typical 6-sided die, except that the 1 is replaced by a blank, and it's called a miss. Now, the reason that is important is that if you roll a 6, that's a critical hit, and when you get a critical hit, you can re-roll the die. And then whatever you roll on the second roll is added to the damage. So like if I roll a 6 and then I re-roll it and get a 4, then I actually do 10 damage with that 1 die. But re-rolling criticals is always a little bit risky because if you re-roll a critical and then get a miss, then it's 0. You lose the 6 damage from the critical and you're back to nothing. So it's a 1 in 6 chance that you waste your critical. Now, the aggressive and defensive stances basically give you trade-offs related to how critical hits work. If you switch to defensive mode, then misses count as 1 damage, but they're still considered misses and on top of that, you do not get to reroll criticals. So if you roll a 6, it's just 6 damage. If you roll a miss, it's 1 damage, but I guess, yeah, it doesn't matter that the miss is still a miss because you don't get criticals and you can't reroll. Also, your armor goes up by 1, though this does not exceed your maximum of 4. That won't matter here, of course, because this particular mini-boss ignores armor. The aggressive stance makes it so that 5s are considered critical. So you can reroll 5s and then add damage of the second die, but the problem is that misses happen if you roll a 2. So your odds of getting a miss and wasting your critical increase from a 6th to a 3rd. The general consensus seems to be that aggressive stance is bad, and you should just never do this unless you're literally about to die and are just completely desperate. Even then, it might not be a good idea. So you never use aggressive stance, but the reason why it's important to play with combat stances is that defensive stance is sometimes really important for that armor bonus. Anyway, in this particular fight, we'll just be sticking to regular balance stance, and let's also talk about character abilities. Every character has an ability that can be used before you roll the dice. So what I'm going to do here is turn on Mage Conjuration. What the Mage's Conjuration ability lets them do is get the benefits of a fire, freeze, or poison potion, and I'm going to do freeze to prevent the enemy from attacking, and also so that I can just demonstrate how a roll works. Probably the best thing to do there would have just been to do fire. But let's go ahead and roll. Okay, so I rolled a miss. Hooray! And the monster rolled a 6. So the way that the dungeon die works in combat is that if the monster rolls a 1, they miss. If the dungeon die rolls a 6, it means the monster's attack pierces armor, which doesn't matter for monsters that already pierce armor. And any other number is just the monster deals its normal damage. So what I'm going to do here is actually use a feat. We're going to pay 2 health to reroll this miss and hopefully do some damage to this monster. We got another miss. Okay, well, let's talk about another important rule here is you can reroll a die only once per combat. Notice I no longer have the option of like hitting, of rerolling this die. So we rolled 2 misses in a row. We're doing 0 damage. The monster was frozen, so it didn't do any damage to us. But now we're on to the next round of combat. And you'll notice my character is grayed out, so I can no longer use the conjuration ability. Okay, let's go ahead and roll. We rolled another miss. Wow, that's amazing. All right, let's use a feat, and I guess let's pay 2 more health to reroll this. We got 2. We got 2, everybody. Okay, if I had gotten a 5, I would have used this fire potion to deal 7 damage plus 5 and kill the monster, but as it is, we are just doing 2 damage. And we're rolling. We got a 4. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use my fire potion that I bought from the hunter earlier to do 7 plus 4 is 11 damage and kill this monster. Now, when you click the potion button, it automatically takes all your damage along with the potion and deals it to the monster. So if you want to reroll critical hits, you got to do that before you click the potion button. Okay, we rolled a 1 on the rewards table, which means we got a fire potion or 2 experience. Since we leveled up from just killing the monster, I will go ahead and take a fire potion. But if we had not leveled up, I would take the 2 experience to level up. Let's talk about experience. When you get up to 6 experience, you level up to a level 2 character. And what that means is that you roll 2 dice, that should say character dice, instead of 1 whenever you would roll character dice. This includes combat, so your damage output is statistically now doubled. And when you now do these skill checks, you're twice as likely to succeed. So watch, when I encounter this trap, 2 white dice got rolled. So a 6 means that had I failed, I would have become blinded and lost to food, but because one of my 2 dice was a success, it was a 5 or a 6, instead I get the reward of getting 2 experience. So it's a really big deal to get up to 6 XP and double your dice. If you then get up to 18, you get up to level 3 and you roll 3 character dice, and you'll notice right here, your maximum XP that you can never have is 23. So you cannot hoard more than 23 XP. You also cannot level up above 3. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, but if you can't level up above 3, then why does it matter what my maximum XP is? Well, that is because, remember, you can spend XP on rerolls. So when you're at 23 XP, you just get to kind of spend it as a resource to reroll dice in combat. If you, just as a quick point of order, lose XP either because you're spending XP on a feat or because you get a negative effect that makes you lose XP, and it actually drops you below the level needed to reach that level, you actually lose a character die, which means in the middle of combat, you actually lose one of your combat dice immediately. So, try not to go below the threshold that was necessary, in this case, going below 6, if you want to maintain your current level. All right, we actually got a new card already, which is great. So let's reveal the other cards. See if there's anything new to talk about. Okay, Crow. That is new. All right, so we'll talk about that. Bonfire. So the way the bonfire works is it's great. You get your hero power back, and you either get an experience, a food, or 2 health. Now, since I fruitlessly spent 2 health in that previous fight trying to reroll my misses, I'm just going to take 2 health here. Remember, food is like 3 health later, but I'm hoping that I find food at some point and get lucky. Okay, we have a hermit here, which is great. So I can share a meal, get money, or swap stuff. So I could go here and get another bonfire, basically, which is probably the correct thing to do, actually. But we're going to go here. All right, let's encounter the treasure. So we passed the skill check, which means we actually do get the treasure here, and that is a choice between 2 experience or 1 armor. Since I already leveled up, we'll take the armor. Armor can be sold at a shop, so even if you don't really care about having armor, you can sell it for coins later on. And now let's talk about the crow and actually fight this monster. So the way the crow works is you have a choice. You either lose a coin and get nothing, or you lose a food and you pick up the crow card. That's what the symbol means with the hand with the card. You pick it up and now you have it. If you don't have food, you cannot give it to the crow. It's not one of those things where you can like give it food and lose an HP because you have no food. It's like, no, if you don't have food, you cannot do this. So you're forced to give it a coin, and if you don't have food or coins, then you lose an HP. So the crow gives you 2 different powers. Air draft can be used in exploration, meaning after you resolve a card, but before you go to the next card, to just get rid of a card. So if you're like in a situation where both your next 2 choices suck, you can use this to just throw one of them away and get something random from the deck. Overview happens before you encounter the top left card at the beginning of a floor. So after descending, but before you encounter the top left card, you may choose to do the overview, which lets you see 2 cards and either be like, yep, let's keep that card, or nope, let's put that card back into the deck. So it can basically give you a little bit of insurance to make sure that the very first card at the beginning of a floor, which you can't control, is not something terrible. But let's go fight this monster. So now we are on the 3rd floor of the dungeon, so we're in the 2nd area, which means that this burrowing worm will now have, as you can see, 6 HP. So it's not a mutant fly with just 4 HP. This is a burrowing worm with 6 HP. It deals 2 damage, and it has this symbol. And what that means is that you fall. You fall through to the next floor. So like I will actually end up on floor 4 on this space, which might seem like a good thing, right? Because like, oh, I got a free floor, but it's not, because you don't get your hero power back since you did not go to this space. You do save yourself the food. I guess you could say that's a good thing, but a lot of the time it's a bad thing because it means you miss the opportunity to encounter cards and get stronger, and also in this case it means you'd be immediately fighting the mini boss, which would be terrible. However, I'm fine with that because I still have my conjuration ability since I got it back from the bonfire, so we're going to use this to deal 7 damage, and since this thing only has 6 HP, that's just going to kill it. So we get 2 experience for killing that thing, because you can see that was the reward for the level 2 version of the card, and now we descend into the dungeon. What happens next? Well, stay tuned. Okay, I guess we're apparently fighting another monster. Oh, another burrowing worm. Okay, well, I'll just kill that real quick because we're on a new floor. So we have our conjuration ability back in case you're thinking, hey, gee, seems really strong that mages get to just make fire potions. Yeah, mage is a really strong character. Anyways, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed this game. Check it out. It's totally free on Board Game Arena. I will be doing a playthrough series on the hardest difficulty with all 4 of the characters. And I'll also be doing a general strategy guide. So I'll do that on normal difficulty. And then if you want to get like the really nitty-gritty ins and outs of how to do as well as possible in this game, check out my series on the highest difficulty level with all 4 characters. But thanks so much for watching. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.